evening, I'm Sinilato and this is Television Tonga News. In the headlines, the government hopes to start constructing transitional houses for the people of Ha'apai. Survey on Lava'o's terrestrial and marine ecosystem has commenced. And women of the Takamotonga are trained on using natural resources as a source of income. These and more stories, including news from the Pacific, sports, world, and the weather information, later on in this bulletin. Let's take a look at the news in detail. The Crown Prince, Tupoto'a Olukalala, and Crown Princess Sinai Takala will be the guest of honor in the official opening of Te Ekiu Community Hall tomorrow. According to the chairman of the committee for Te Ekiu Hall, Soakai Motuapuaka, the Te Ekiu Community Hall was built under assistance from the Pacific Partnership 2013 between His Majesty's Armed Forces and the United States Armed Forces in June 2013. The hall is 120 feet long and 50 feet wide. It will act as an evacuation center in times of natural disasters for the villagers, amongst many other things. Motuapuaka says about 120 families in Te Ekiu will benefit from the assistance, which is to the tune of 2 million ba'anga. There is hope for the Tongan government to start constructing transitional houses for the Ha'apai residents after 800 homes on the island were destroyed by Cyclone Ian. This was confirmed to media yesterday by the Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee, Honourable Samuel Vaipulo. Here's Linda Filiai with the details.
The Deputy Prime Minister and the Chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee, Honourable Samuel Vaipulo, says they hope that the construction work for the temporary houses in Ha'apai will be completed before the end of this year. I hope the governments can build 50 houses and the rest of the 750 houses will wait for assistance from donor partners. The World Bank had agreed to cover the cost of the 70% of the transitional houses for Ha'apai residents. The remaining 30% of the cost will depend on the Tongan governments. The chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee adds they are going to tender this work to companies to carry out the construction work. After the work carried out to temporary houses, we continue on to the permanent houses, which will stand next to the temporary houses. The chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee emphasized that the temporary houses will be built under the same plan and size, and they will make sure that it can withstand future cyclones.
The Ministry of Finance and National Planning has transferred unused budget from the current financial year for the payment of the public civil servants' 5% COLA or cost of living allowance. The relocation of the amount of money for the payment of the 5% COLA was taking place before the first half of this month so that the government could start with the payment of the COLA, including paying back of the amount that it should have paid to public civil servants for the month of January as approved by the Cabinet. The Honourable Minister of the Finance and National Planning, Dr. Aisake Valueke, in an exclusive interview with Radio and Television Tonga yesterday, confirmed that the payment of the 5% COLA was or has started on the first half of this month's payment of public civil servants. He said it included also the payback of the amount for the month of January. There was an unused amount of 250,000 ba'anga allocated for the Royal Commission that was established aiming to monitor the operation of the revenue services, and we take that for the payment of the 5% COLA as well as an unused million pa'anga that was assigned for the securing of public enterprises loan, and we assessed that these loans are secured and we can also use that amount of money. The Minister has also told Radio Tonga News that the total amount of the 5% COLA of about more than 4,000 public civil servants, starting from January 2014 to the end of the current financial year, on June 30th is about 2.2 million pa'anga. Meanwhile, the rest of the amount approved by the Cabinet for the public civil servants COLA, which is 35%, will be submitted in the next financial year's budget for the Parliament's approval. The payment for COLA involved all public civil servants, part-time and daily employees, as well as pensioners. The COLA was funded from the 198 million pa'anga estimate in the budget. It means that the amount had been recommended And if we did not get the amount we would have asked to top up the budget, we also can go back to the Parliament with recommendations to increase tax and other earning to fund the COLA, but we manage within the current financial year. The last COLA payment made by government for public civil servants was during the financial year of 2008-2009. Dr. Aike said the reason why it took so long to make such payment for COLA was due to the country's economic downfall. The chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee and Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Samuel Waipulu, yesterday received monetary assistance of more than 4,000 ba'anga from the people of the faraway island of Niua Fo'ou in the northern side of Tongatapu. Linda Filiai reports.
The Honourable Minister of Public Enterprises, who's also Parliament's representatives for the two Niues, Honourable Fe'ava Gata, represented the people of Niua Fo'ou in presenting the donation to the Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Sami Waipulu. In a statement from Fe'ava Gata, he says, the monetary assistance was collected by the residents of Niua Fo'ou to help the resident of Ha'apai in the wake of Cyclone Ian. Although the monetary assistance is not big, but this is the best that the Niua Fo'ou people can provide. I am very happy with the assistance because the Niua Fo'ou residents are struggling to earn a living, but they still manage to collect this amount of money. We are hoping this assistance will help with the work carried out by governments to the people of Ha'apai. In the meantime, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee, Honourable Sami Waipulu, thanks the Niua Fo'ou residents for their generous assistance. Every monetary assistance collected is very helpful with the work that we carry out towards the people of Ha'apai. I would like to thank the Niua Fo'ou Development Committee for allowing their boat to be used in Ha'apai for transporting cargoes and their items to scattered islands. The chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee says the assistance from the people of Niua Fo'ou will be deposited to Cyclone Ian Relief Fund account, which was set up to collect monetary assistance for the recovery work in Ha'apai.
It is vital to maintain the number of staff in His Majesty's Armed Forces due to the significant role they play in the society and the nation. This is the reason for His Majesty's Armed Forces annual recruitment for this year. Anisi Falegano has more on that story.
Lieutenant Colonel Lord Ve'ehala from His Majesty Armed Forces confirmed this to Radio and Television Tonga News this morning. He says they need to maintain the total number of staff in His Majesty Armed Forces in about 700, as some of the staff have left the force for different reasons.
Well, in the past, His Majesty's Armed Forces more like a form of a company or discipline institute, which everybody's looking down on it, back into the 50s, 60s. But nowadays, His Majesty's Armed Forces has been growing and developed from that phase into what it is now. It requires a lot of people with higher education, a minimum of Form 5, as you see in the advertisement, into a maximum of bachelor level or master level. And that's where the stance are. And also the opportunities for studies overseas, it is attracts a lot of people too. And it's also how the Defence Force conducts its own business and role within the kingdom and abroad. It gives a lot of encouragement for the young people to join. With His Majesty's Armed Forces demand not only education background but also the physical capability.
Furthermore, Lieutenant Colonel Lord Ve'ehala mentions that the successful applicants will be divided to the 6 main divisions of His Majesty Armed Forces. Meantime, the interview for new recruitment is currently underway at His Majesty Armed Forces headquarters in Nuku'alofa, and the results will be out on Friday.
Firstly, the recruiting for His Majesty's Armed Forces is the responsibility of the Chief of the Defence Staff is to sustain and raise and maintain the manpower is required to man His Majesty's Armed Forces. Firstly, the Land Force, which is located in Tariai, the Air Wing, which they man our 2 aircrafts, the Tonga Royal Guards, which is located in Nuku'alofa, the training wing, the logistic administration, and also the Navy. They are the main 6 branches.
He adds around 500 staff in His Majesty Armed Forces. The force received more than 300 applications for this year's new recruitment, but only 70 will be recruited. These applications include locals from Tongatapu and from the outer islands. Lieutenant Colonel Lord Ve'ehala adds that about 60% of the applications they received are men and 40% are women.
There is hope for women in the Takamotonga who took part in a short-term training on handicrafts and cultural tourism support program, and that the training is funded by the New Zealand government in collaboration with the Langafonua Awhawhine Tonga. The women who took part in the training were awarded with certificates for the completion of the course from the guest of honour at the event, Lady Tuna Fialakepa. In a speech from the guest of honour, she highlighted that Tonga is blessed with local resources that are available for the people. There is plenty of time and blessings from God. It is up to you and me to make use of it. There are bandana leaves, amongst other things, that can be used to create new products and sell them. This is a source of income to help individual families. The program supports the idea of producing products from natural resources found locally, amongst many other things. One of the teachers in the training program, Sione Loseli, who looks after screen printing, has acknowledged the women to share the knowledge they've acquired with the other villagers. The displays are magnificent. The question is, what will happen tomorrow? To be able to buy bread and sugar for the family. What's more important to me is that you are able to do these stuff. I'm asking you to share with the rest of the villagers the knowledge you have acquired. The Takamotonga's town officer, Devita Fatou, also stressed that the women of the Takamotonga are blessed to have taken part in such a training. Our families and relatives are blessed. The things we find locally is all here in the island. I'm thankful that these women and men have come to help us, sharing their knowledge and experience with us. The knowledge will be used to help to build up the community and the individual families. The program has been conducted in several villages here in Tongatapu and the outer islands with women, men and youth taking part in the opportunity. The program is funded by the New Zealand government in collaboration with the Langafonua Awhawhine Tonga. The Honourable Minister of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, Dr. Viliami Wasikela-Atu, will officially launch tomorrow the newly designed cartons or boxes for exporting agricultural products to overseas market. According to information from the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour, the AusAid-funded project is one of the Ministry's efforts in facilitating growth and development of the private sector. It also stated that the Ministry has worked closely with the stakeholders from the agricultural export sector to pursue key projects under the Pacific Horticultural and Agricultural Market Access, or FARMA project, aiming at further developing the market access and pathways for Tongan agricultural commodities towards formal markets in New Zealand and Australia. The first part of the project was the development of the packaging material for the frozen lines, which was launched in 2013. The second part of the project is the development of the carton boxes to cater for the needs of the export markets in terms of packaging of fresh products, including fruits and vegetables. Both packaging materials are newly developed and the labels were specifically designed with the brand Kingdom of Tonga, the True South Pacific. The Ministry is expecting both the packaging materials for frozen and carton boxes to provide local exporters with the right packaging that is required.